This episode of the Cult Pop Show podcast was brought to you by our Patreon.
If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopshow. Pathetic.
Once again,
Stupid.
Thank you for joining us. This sounds like I'm wrapping up. the joining us on the Cult Pop Show podcast. Today, we are finishing something we started what feels like a lifetime ago.
Generations ago.
Yeah, you could say that. It's almost like this is kind of a reboot of where we first started.
Okay, you could say that, yeah.
Yeah, or like an alternate timeline, I guess. Is technically, I don't know. There's varying degrees of ways you can go about it. Anywho, if you've been listening to us for the last couple of weeks, you will know what I'm talking about. But if this is the first episode you've ever heard of this podcast, then we? Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. My name is Richard. I am joined by my co-host Alexander Jones.
Yeah, I guess that is my name.
Yeah. And this is a little show called Film Franchise Fortnights. The podcast is called Cult Pop Show. This is a series within that framework.
Which takes up the majority of the podcast itself, which is confusing. But at the same time, you don't want to subscribe to a podcast called Film Franchise Fortnights.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this because you did subscribe because of the cool name, we're sorry. This is really what the podcast is. And
we don't just spoonerize phrases, as the title would suggest.
Yeah. And so, we've done this in we're doing the Star Trek series, and it's taken us more than 2 parts, or to spoonerize that, poo tarts, which is a Christmas treat you don't want in your stocking.
Maybe we do that on this podcast then, after all.
Maybe we could do that for our upcoming spin-off podcast, Gamelify.
Yeah, very good.
We're pitching...
I can't
our new
be
thing is
setting
pitching Family Guy spin-off podcasts.
Family Guy-based podcasts. I can't be bothered setting this up, but Tar Streaks is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, nice.
You can set it up if you like.
Nah.
We can save that one for later.
And so, the Star Trek, a couple of weeks ago we covered the Next Generation series of films, and a couple of weeks before that we covered the original series of films. Today we're doing the depends what you want to call them, the reboot series, the J.J. Abrams films, or the Kelvin timeline is what we are talking about. And starting with Star Trek in 2009, Star Trek Into Darkness in 2013, and most recently Star Trek Beyond in 2016.
So it's been a while since the last one, eh?
Yeah, for sure. And this episode is going to have one of the longest Continuing the Franchise segments, because there has been so much happening with the possibility of a Star Trek 4. So
cool. Interesting.
So let's take ourselves back to 2009 when J.J. Abrams himself, because there was, with no Star Wars films on the horizon, he said, well, I guess I'll do a Star Trek film. And we'll get into that a bit more, but that is more or less the story. And he directed this film. What do you think it has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, so we said that this is the highest one the other week. We said this had the highest Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm going to guess 95%.
94%, but it is the highest one of the franchise. And what is it about, AJ?
So this is essentially an origin story for the original series characters. So we are joined by, we join a young captain. Well, he's not captain yet, but James Tiberius Kirk. But before we join him, we join his father, Chris Hemsworth, upon the starship USS Kelvin, which is similar to what we know of as the Enterprise, but things are disrupted when a large ship comes out of nowhere and blows everyone up. A lot of the crew are saved thanks to to Captain George Kirk, stepping up to save the day when their usual captain goes away. He is killed in the process, but does facilitate the escape of something like 800 lives, including his newborn son, and by newborn I mean getting born as the ship is exploding. It is later described as he was captain for 12 minutes and managed to save 800 lives. But he does die in the process, and young James Kirk grows up, a bit of a rebel, but is eventually talked into joining Starfleet, where he eventually gets aboard the Enterprise along with other known characters, young versions of known characters, including Spock, including Bones, including Uhura, including Scotty, Chekhov, Sulu. The gang's all there, guys. Have I missed anyone? No, that's them. That's all of them, right?
Yeah.
Sad for whoever I did miss.
Pike was there.
Yeah, Pike's there. Yep. And the main crux of the story is that the big ship that came out of nowhere and blew up the Kelvin was following Spock from the future through a wormhole, where they got sucked in and are now trying to get back, because the leader of these evil guys is named Nero, who is this like Romulan.
Yep.
And in the future, the planet of Romuloid, or whatever it's
Romulus,
called,
I think.
Romulus, got blown up, and Spock, who was an ambassador for them at the time, was unable to save the planet, and so he's gone back in time to get his revenge. Basically, Nero's stuck there for 25 years, whereas Spock is only there for a few days because of how the time travel works. And he blows up the planet the planet Vulcan, as a show of like, this is how mad I am. And for this movie, Spock, played by Zachary Quinto, this is obviously a massive deal. Whereas Leonard Nimoy Spock, who shows up in this, is like, that sucks. I don't know, I always get the vibe from Leonard Nimoy's Spock in this that he's like, well, I lived a full life with Vulcan intact, so I'm not too upset.
Well, he's also, he's done a lot more to purge himself of emotion than Zachary Quinto.
And so, yeah, they fight Nero before he can destroy Earth, and they save the day.
But yeah, there's the whole thing that Leonard Nimoy Spock shows up, Spock Prime, and
which I remember being like a plot. It was like one of these things where it was like there's aliens in the new Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It was one of these things which I feel like someone told me before I saw it. But when you watch this movie, in the introductory scene, when the captain of the Kelvin ship goes to talk to Nero, there's like a little hologram that's right in the center of the screen that has Leonard Nimoy's Spock like circling around on it, and it's like, wow, they really just tell you right from the start that Leonard Nimoy's in it.
And then the other thing you pointed out while watching it is that he appears in the film before Scotty as well.
Yeah, he's in the film. That's so funny.
Well, he shows up in about an hour, and then they go find Scotty. It's more that Scotty's in the film weirdly late.
Yeah, and because like I'd seen this film before. It was the only Star Trek film I'd seen at all. I didn't even see the sequels to this. And I remember it being like Spock appears like start of the third act, and Simon Pegg plays Scotty. And so you're thinking that these things are going to be like, in the order of how important those things feel. But yeah, Spock shows up weirdly early in this film, and Scotty's in it after Spock's introduced. Old Spock.
Yeah.
Old Spock.
Old Spock. So thank you for that description. And so this film takes place in like an alternate reality from the original. It was sort of, J.J. Abrams had said that he dropped off Star Trek essentially. He never saw Nemesis. He thought it became disconnected from the original series. He said he was more of a fan of Star Wars growing up, and that Star Trek was always about Kirk and Spock, and then anything else was just something that slapped the name on. And
you know what? I agree. Yeah. That's a really astute observation of at least how I feel about Star Trek.
Yeah. But he was originally just brought on as a producer. It was a Bad Robot thing. But then after reading the script, he was like, I'm going to be so jealous of whoever gets to make this. so he decided to step in as director. And yeah, it's interesting. So, like, it's one of these funny films where it's like it's got 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I just remember hearing so much like bad shit about it at the time, because I saw this on DVD like a year after or something like that, and then I saw Into Darkness in the cinema, and then I saw Beyond on TV like 6 months after it came out. But the one thing that I think we need to address is the use of lens flares in this film. Did you find it distracting?
I never thought it was distracting. It's just a visual style. I mean, I noticed them because I was looking for them, but I think if no one had made fun of J.J. Abrams for lens flares, I maybe wouldn't have noticed before.
Yeah.
And isn't there there's behind the scenes footage of him flashing a flashlight into the camera lens at one point?
Like you say, it was just
I don't know.
A choice. Yeah. Yeah, are you able to explain to me the Kelvin timeline thing and how this is an alternate reality?
Oh, right. God, I thought you were going to ask me to explain lens flares to you, and I was going to be like, Richard, no. I don't know how they work. Light displacement? Is that right? That's a guess. Using bigger words I don't really understand. The Kelvin timeline. Well, okay. Is this... Because the fact that it's different actors playing the characters suggests that it's an alternate dimension, almost like a Marvel multiverse kind of situation, where sometimes in some universes people look a bit different. But the way it's treated is that it's because of time travel, which should mean that Chris Pine is going to grow into William Shatner.
No, I think that... So the original series plays out some point after what we've seen of the original series. Spock travels back in time, and now the timeline has skewed off into this tangent. And so because of all these events, although, I guess because I was going to say that that's the point.
He goes
before
back
the
in
point
time,
after the point of conception. So it can't be that it's a different sperms and a different ova. But yeah.
Yeah. So basically, he goes back in time, and because, in the presumably in the original series timeline, the USS Kelvin was never destroyed. They talk about in the film, old Spock says that Kirk used to talk about his father very fondly, and that he inspired him. So in the original, the Shatner version,
New was dead.
George Kirk is alive. Or at least he was for the majority of his life. So this is different. This is that because the Kelvin was destroyed, Kirk grew up in a different environment, and Nero was a force that didn't used to be in the past, but now is, and because of that, the planet Vulcan gets destroyed. So that's like what has disrupted this version of the timeline and why certain things are different. I think this is really only relevant for the first film. I feel like
the other ones are just sequels to that.
It's just Star Trek. I think Quinto's Spock does mention that Vulcan was destroyed a couple of times, but
What did you think of the film?
I thought this was such a good time. Fuck, this is a good time.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten what it was like, how I felt about it the first time I saw it. The main thing I remember was first time I saw it, it was 2009. I was 16. I went with my high school girlfriend, Richard.
Nice.
You don't often hear me tell high school girlfriend stories, Richard, and that's because I had 1.5.
We went on one date and we went to go see Star Trek.
No, and she lost the tickets, and I had to buy us new tickets to it. And she was very apologetic. And I wanted to make out in the cinema, and she did not want to make out in the cinema. But that's her choice, and I respected it and did not push because
Right, but you are still going on about it 14 years later, AJ.
Oh, she still lost the tickets. What am I gonna do for her? But no, watching it this time, I was like, what this is Star Trek with a budget we've never seen before. And I can imagine for Star Trek fans, that would have been pretty fucking cool. Because it's pretty fucking cool regardless, right? But there are so many action sequences in this that I was like, this is exhilarating. This is so good. The bit where Kirk and Sulu have to paraglide onto the drill. Oh my god, what an exciting scene that was. I thought that was so cool. And then the final battle with Nero, all these really expertly directed scenes. And I've spent every year since 2019 thinking J.J. Abrams was a bad director, actually. And then you watch Star Trek and it's like, this is like his best film. Like, this is so good, and it's so the like dynamics between the characters are so good. One thing that I think this movie has over the original series movies is that because it's not falling back on a pre-existing TV show, like I feel like these movies have given me way better of an idea of who like Sulu or Chekhov are as characters, you know, like they take back seats in almost all of the original series movies, and in this it was
actually, they sit right at the front though.
They take front seats, yeah. But in this it's like, okay, no, like Sulu has a role to play and he's got a character and, dare I say, an arc, you know, like they're all so well crafted. And yeah, I thought this was great. I thought this was a great time. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like this movie. It's just it's just a lot of fun is the main thing. And also, I mean, you mentioned a few people there, but like, I mean, what a cast as well. That like, you know,
let's talk about the cast.
Because the thing is that, like, you know, in the original one, you're beholden to these actors in the original are all iconic, but you know, in this one, it's like you literally have your pick of the litter, like. Because so many people in Hollywood grew up as Trekkies and would jump at the chance to play one of these characters. And so Chris Pine has sort of talked a little bit about how, like, he wrote to William Shatner when he got the role, and Shatner, you know, wholeheartedly approved. But he decided to not do, like, trying to be Shatner. He studied more like Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and like Tom Cruise in Top Gun, like those kind of characters. It's like, you need like the cocky sort of alpha and emulate the same kind of character. And then obviously, you know, Zachary Quinto was on set with Leonard Nimoy and so had that as a resource. But yeah, it's interesting. I remember an episode of The Big Bang Theory where they made there was something about Sheldon didn't want to try something new, and Leonard was just like, Zachary Quinto, and that's like shorthand for like, sometimes new things can be pretty good. And so it was funny that like, you know, as my sort of glimpse into what the general nerddom thinks, although Big Bang Theory is very much a jock's idea of nerds, but like, you know, Leonard Nimoy as Spock is like, you know, one of the all-time sort of performances. And then I thought that was a funny and cute little joke that it's like, and then, because, you know, Sheldon's like, oh, every time, blah, 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 Zachary Quinto. Because he's great in the role.
Sheldon.
Yeah, he won a bunch of Emmys.
So let's talk about what each actor is doing.
Yeah.
With their role. I feel like I can't really talk on Uhura, Sulu, and Chekhov. I think they are. I'm not familiar enough with the characters to be able to judge how Zoe Saldana, John Cho, or Anton Yelchin like approached the roles. Though I do like the but all three characters in these movies. I reckon. So as you said, Chris Pine's Kirk is, regardless of Shatner's Kirk, it feels like it's as you say, it's more of like a homage to the archetype of the rogue captain than Shatner specifically. There's a little bit of the like implied promiscuity of Shatner as like front force in the Chris Pine version,
especially the first one.
Yep. And Zachary Quinto's Spock, I think, is Spock as we haven't seen him before. Yeah. So you can't be like, he's not doing it right, because it's like, well, no, this is Spock before he had his emotions in check and all this.
Well, it's like a key plot point in this film as well, is that Kirk has to compromise him emotionally and get Spock so mad to the point where he fucking beats the shit out of him.
Yeah. I think that Simon Pegg wants the role too much, and his Scotty is very eager in a way which feels not as authentic as the other characters. And I've also heard before, apparently he's doing like the worst Scottish accent, which I couldn't tell. But
no, I think he's doing it. It's a different region than from what. So it's a blend of like East and West Coast, because I think his wife, he has a Scottish wife who he learnt from, who's Glaswegian, and he has a Scottish wife named Maureen. My dad also has a Scottish wife named Maureen.
Your mum?
Yeah. And yeah, but I think the James Doohan, who plays the original Scotty, is from the other coast, sort of thing, and things. And so it's like it's a little bit of a blend, but yeah.
I guess Simon Pegg feels like the one doing a subpar impression of the character. Although I do love when he's like, I'm giving it all she's got, Captain.
Yeah.
Because that was one thing that my Star Trek loving father would say all the time. When I was
nice. Yeah, there's a lot. I remember him talking in interviews about like little things that he'd picked up that he slipped into the movie. One was how don't we, man? Which is hold on, little man, like a wee man.
Nice.
Because he's got his little assistant who's played by Deep Roy from the.
Oh, you're kidding! I didn't know that was Deep Roy.
Yeah, from
That's great.
Deep Roy died recently. Yeah.
No,
is Deep Roy still alive?
I don't think so. Or you Google it, Mr. Fast Googler.
A reference,
That's a reference
to last week's episode
that hasn't come out. Oh no, it has come out. It came out last week.
No, he's still alive.
Yeah. But okay, Carl Urban as Bones McCoy, incredible. This no one else is doing what he's doing, which is weirdly the thing you'd expect, which is like a very I don't know, true impersonation. Like it's an impersonation of DeForest Kelley, but it's so good that it doesn't have the same pitfalls that I think Simon Pegg's has.
Right.
Like Carl Urban is my favorite part of this trilogy.
Interesting.
He just gets it, and he would do things or say things, and there'd be a look, and I'd be like, I've seen 6 performances by DeForest Kelley, so I'm by no means an expert. But he just was doing it, but he sold it as his own thing, and I think because it is quite a specific role. I reckon Bones.
They toned down the racism, though, which is good.
That's true. Well, he still calls him a green-blooded bastard
and beyond.
Third one. But I think that like Bones is, of all the characters that we know of from Star Trek, Bones is somewhere in between the like we actually put effort into writing unique characters of Kirk and Spock, but not as like just a caricature like Scotty or Chekhov, right? So he's a bit more. He's got this complexity to them that I don't think the other characters have, and I just thought Carl Urban was so great at playing this like angry person, this angry man who's just fed up with everything. And I think it's great because I couldn't sell, damn it, man, I'm a doctor, not a whatever. Like all these catchphrases things, which he says over and over again. Those are hard things to sell. It's hard to sell someone else's catchphrase when you're playing that character. But I think he does it really well. And there's also a great little sort of, in any other prequel, I'd call it a roll your eyes moment, where when he first meets Kirk and he's like, my damn ex-wife's taken everything from me, clothes off my back. All I got left is my bones. And it's like, oh, fuck, it's Bones! I really like Carl Urban in this movie. I think he's the best part.
Wow. What do you think of Leonard Nimoy?
So warm and lovely and gentle, and like I feel like I'm really interested in Spock, Leonard Nimoy's Spock as a character now, more so than I ever was before. Like, it's kind of this like, oh, I get it now kind of thing. That's what these movies have got me to the point where it's like, this really is like an all-timer performance, you know?
Yeah. Well, and he also makes a small appearance in Into Darkness, which we'll get to. But yes, he played Spock for 47 years.
Wow,
and also, interestingly, he's played Spock in 6 consecutive decades.
Holy shit.
So he played him in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. The last original series movie comes out in 91, and then the 90s, and then he plays him in 2009, 2000s, and then Into Darkness in the 2010s.
Yes! That's awesome.
That's fucking insane, eh?
Yeah. And he's still got it.
Well, not anymore.
I remember 3 days before he died, his last tweet was like, life is a garden, you know, enjoy. It was something like that. And it was like, water it, water your life. I'm gonna look up Leonard Nimoy's last tweet. Oh no, you're gonna do it faster than me. A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved except in memory.
Lap.
What a I live long and prosper. No. What a like lucid thought for a tweet days before your mortality.
Well, fuck, have you listened to David Bowie's final album?
True.
Came out the day before he died, and it's like a reflection on accepting death. It's insane. Wow. It's a great album.
That's awesome. Did you see James Caan's last tweet?
What was it?
It was like, oh no, not Ray, sad face. Isn't that brutal? Isn't that just the saddest tweet ever?
Do you remember Lance Reddick's last tweet? Like, what
was it?
what the dog's doing?
Yeah, it's dog videos.
Yeah, well, there wasn't
Those are
actually like
great.
his last tweet. I don't know what it was, but yeah, he just was like, they had this ongoing series about these dogs making
dog.
noise.
Oh, that's so sad. Lance Reddick felt like he couldn't die, eh?
Mm,
Like he so consistently played characters with an air of immortality to them.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. I mean, I spoke to him like a week before he died as well.
That's right.
Yeah,
You said you're going to die in 7 days.
yeah. This one, Star Trek, it's only to date Academy Award for Best Makeup.
Nice. It's also the only film called Star Trek.
Yeah, I was trying to
Godzilla
think.
2014 situation.
Yeah. I was trying to think of. There's a franchise like we covered recently where it's like real far into it before you get the first thing that's actually just named that, and I think it must have been Chucky. That it's like the
Right.
Chucky TV series that started in 2019.
Oh,
or
didn't we
2021.
talk about this recently?
Yeah.
Didn't we like have a riff on it? So it'll be
Because it has to be Chucky, surely, because that's the only one I can think of. But I'm like, we talked about this recently. Or was it Scooby Doo?
yeah, it would have been Scooby Doo. Yeah.
Yeah, because Scooby Doo.
Or Hannibal,
Yeah.
but that's not that far into the franchise.
Because, yeah, the original Scooby Doo TV series is called Scooby Doo, Where Are You?
Hmm.
What on earth
That's
is
right.
happening to this dog?
The last time I'll speak to my mouth. There's shout out to Rivix on the Discord who makes posters from the joke names we give certain movies. My favorite one is "This is the last time I'll speak to my mouse" from Stuart Little.
So there was a scene written for William Shatner in this movie. They offered it to him, and he was essentially like, "No, I want a role as big as Leonard's." And they were like, well, you know, you died in Generations. And he was like, you can canonize my novel where he gets resurrected. Because he wrote a novel called The Return. And there's a series of novels dubbed the Shatnerverse.
The fucking day, bro.
Yeah. So there's the Shatnerverse of novels where Kirk gets resurrected, and there's a few sequels to it. And they said, you know, then it would become this whole thing about Kirk being resurrected, and rather than trying to introduce this new thing. But Leonard Nimoy said that he didn't like the Kirk's death in Generations, but felt resurrecting Kirk would be detrimental to the film. And there was a scene, Nichelle Nichols suggested playing Uhura's grandmother, but interestingly, Abrams actually couldn't write that into the script because of the writer's strike.
Wow, there we go. Interesting. Wow. Yeah.
One of the things that people often criticize this movie for is that the thing of J.J. Abrams clearly just wanted to make a Star Wars film, not a Star Trek film. What do you think of that criticism? It's interesting. Sorry, before you answer that, like, I feel like we have a much clearer... like what a Star Wars film was different in 2009 than it is now, because we've almost doubled the amount of them that we have.
Yeah, and dare I say, it's more Star Trekky than it is Star Warsy now.
You reckon?
Well, I mean, look at first of all, it's primarily TV shows.
Yeah, and they're boring.
And these boring TV shows, much like Star Trek, is pissing off everyone. But they're monster or mission of the week stories about exploring the universe. Like The Mandalorian is just Pedro Pascal in Star Trek. But I think I guess that was a hard thing for me to understand without having seen any Star Trek movies. I guess there is a Star Warsy quality to them.
It's just more action. The fact that it's more action-packed, I guess.
It's more action-packed. There's more darkness. They go into darkness a lot more. You could probably call any of them into darkness, to be honest.
Yeah, wow.
And I think that, if I was to say what makes this... what would make a movie Star Trek-y, it's kind of like... I think what makes Star Trek is you've got cinematic stakes, but a budget that doesn't allow for cinematic scope.
Yeah.
So you've got to be weird with it, and you've got to be strange with it. And so Star Trek, at least how we've seen it, has this like je ne sais quoi to it, where it's like it's implying a lot larger of a universe than it's financially able to show.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, there's a lot of the aliens and shit that you see in this, because you watch the original series, it's like, oh, look at those freaky aliens, and it's like, oh, they've got pointy ears and stuff. But in this one, you get like fully different creature designs, which is yeah, and
That's
it's one of those
very
things
Star
that I do wonder, had Gene Roddenberry been alive now, how much he actually
like
wanted to do that.
105.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, is this something that they were actually just like couldn't do because of limitations, or is it like they wanted to do it?
Yeah,
like
I was
that?
watching these movies and I was like, what would Roddenberry even think of this movie?
Yeah.
Like, I've no gauge on what the man likes. I know he didn't like conflict.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about 2009 film?
No, that's good.
All right, yeah, moving on. So 4 years later, Star Trek Into Darkness came out. This one, also directed by J.J. Abrams.
This one won.
Yeah.
This won the best picture.
What do you think this one has on Rotten Tomatoes?
So this is like, everyone's like, J.J. Abrams and sequels, am I right? And I'd never seen this before, so I was led to believe that this was an appalling film. But I didn't think it was that bad. I'd be quite surprised if it was less than fresh.
It's 84%.
That's great. What a great score for a movie.
This is, and we'll get to this after you sort of recount the plot, but this is, in amongst Trekkies, this is like one of the most hated Star Trek films.
Fucking Trekkies, man.
Yeah.
That's so funny. It's like the textbook idea of like a nerd, like a fanatic. I mean, I guess it would be. It's the original fan base, the original toxic fan base.
But it's interesting because I know that we've talked about on I think the last episode we mentioned as well about getting Andrew Todd on an episode once we've finished this Star Trek series to ask all our all of our incorrect statements, and for us to ask any questions. And I know he's given this 1 star on Letterboxd, referred to it as a film with no ideas. And I know for a fact he yelled out, "Fuck you, J.J. Abrams."
I don't know if he wants. Well, you can say it. We'll ask him after this before releasing it if he's okay with that.
I'm pretty sure he's proud of it. I think he's tweeted about it. But anyway, I'm pretty sure he yelled out "Fuck you, J.J. Abrams" in the middle of the screening of this. So
I'm saying he might not want us to keep this in because it makes him look bad, but he might be like, "Yeah, keep it in. It makes me look great."
Yeah, I look real hard. So yeah, what is this film about?
So we are a few years on. The Enterprise is, functioning and operating perfectly fine. And then we find out that someone is terrorist attacking Starfleet.
Whoa.
And who is it? Why, that's Benedict Cumberbatch.
John Harrison.
And they're like, his name is normal name. And you have to go find normal name and bring him to custody. No, don't bring him to custody.
Kill him.
The head of Starfleet is like, blast 72 torpedoes at his location.
Yeah.
But his location is on Klingon, which I thought, the planet's not called Klingon.
It's the Klingon homeworld. It's called
Kronos?
Kronos, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't this interesting? In these 3 movies, if before we'd watched this franchise, you said, AJ, name 10 Star Trek things, Klingon is going to be in the first 5.
Yeah.
Could have said name 5 things. I don't know why. but we this is the only time that we go to Kronos and you see 1 Klingon in the film.
And they're wearing I did think about that because they're wearing these like helmets that are covering the iconic bumps on their forehead. Yeah, the ridges. And I do wonder if there was that sort of discussion of like they look too silly. In like modern technology, they just look too silly. And so they put those on to be like, no, it's part of their armor. It's not actually like
the one that you see, I thought looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I guess I just think it's interesting that you have 3 movies where the whole impetus is like a modern high budget take on these things you love, and across these 3 movies you see 1 unmasked Klingon. Like that and Vulcan was the only thing the only alien race I knew about.
So you could have put you could have just said name 2 things.
Just said name 2 things, and I always confused Vulcan and Klingon anyway. So,
Mm.
anyway, they go to this Klingon planet and they get attacked by Klingons. But then John Harrison saves them all. And upon finding out that they have 72 torpedoes to fire at him, he's like, I surrender, take me aboard. Because Kirk was ordered by RoboCop, Peter Weller's character, to kill John Harrison.
Yeah.
But Spock basically is like, hey, buddy, that's actually a war crime.
Mm.
And that's not we're not a military organization. So he decides to take him in instead. And we find out that the 72 torpedoes are actually cryo tubes containing other superhumans like John Harrison, whose name is not John Harrison, Richard.
But
Richard,
all
his
of the
name is not
marketing
John
and
Harrison.
pre-interviews told me that his name was simply John Harrison.
His name is even simpler than John Harrison. And it's one you've heard before.
Oh.
That's right. Benedict Cumberbatch plays Khan. He plays Khan in this movie. And he tells them, my name is Khan. I have no idea how similar or different his characterization is to who Khan was in the original series. I also don't know if he really embodies the character at all in any way other than name. But it gives us a tie back to some classic Star Trek. Anyway, it turns out that Peter Weller, the head of Starfleet, is also evil, and he wants to start a war with the Klingon, with Kronos, which he believes is inevitable. But also, Khan is also evil, and so they're caught in sort of this like in between of like the Federation are trying to kill them and Khan's trying to kill them. It results in Kirk's death, in a death that parallels Spock's death from Wrath of Khan, But this time he's brought back to life in the same movie. And there was a moment where I was like, is Star Trek Beyond about them going to save Kirk from like heaven? Like a Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End situation? And if that's true, have I really just avoided being spoiled that Kirk dies at the end of Into Darkness for all these years? You know, like that seems impossible. Because him being Khan was spoiled to me the week the movie came out. Didn't mean anything to me.
We made a
but it was
Cult
like,
Popture video about it.
We did. Yes, that's right. Cult Popcorn. And
I was wrong in the video as well.
Were you?
Well, I'll explain after this, but yeah.
Okay. But they managed to bring Kirk back to life by using Khan's resurrecting blood qualities. And then while I was thinking about this movie 2 hours later, I was like, wait, what happens to Khan? Like, they focus so much on Kirk coming back to life that I was like, did I just forget to type? But he gets refrozen again and put in the torpedo, which I think sets a strange ethical standard for something that's so much about like this idea of a utopia as Star Trek. Is like, do we really like? Are we really freezing a different race of humans because they're too dangerous? I mean, in this case, he was too dangerous.
Yeah, they made the right call.
But I'm just saying, like, is there not like a more ethical workaround than to just keep them frozen?
No. But I
don't know, there's a whole emotional arc in it as well with Spock and sort of like what Spock thinks of death and shit like that.
Yeah, because
I don't know.
Yeah, Kirk saves his life at the start, but interrupts
good
the
stuff.
Prime Directive.
I thought, hey Andrew, I thought this was good. I thought this was a good movie.
I enjoy it. I can see some of the complaints that the Trekkies have, like things like they just cured death at the end of the film is pretty lame, and then they like fix everything off screen.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then I think, but yeah, if you are a diehard Trekkie and you love Wrath of Khan, and this is a inferior remake of Wrath of Khan, and that, you know, but it's like, if you just took out the bits where they refer to him as Khan, does that improve the movie for you? Like, yeah.
It's so like lip service to be like, his name's Khan, now he's a relevant character. But is it so lip servicey that it's also silly for that to ruin the movie for you? Because he's Khan basically in name only.
Yeah, because also they Ricardo Montalban is Mexican, and so there was, you know, talk of bit of controversy about the whitewashing of
Right.
that character, and apparently there's a canonical tie-in comic which explains why his complexion changes.
Are we not just? Do we need that? Do we need that, Star Trek fans, or is this? Can we not just be like, we're recasting everyone. We wanted to hide that it was Khan.
Yeah.
We had some blind spots here.
Yeah.
We're sorry.
'Cause-
You really need to do a canonical tie-in comic that explains why someone's race changed.
Yeah, it's some like eugenics program or something like that. Like, but he originally Benicio del Toro was originally in talks.
Oh, that would have been way cool.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
And that's such a
What the hell?
that's such a better Khan.
Yeah, and like, just don't hide that it's Khan.
Yeah.
Fuck it. You're gonna get more people seeing the movie that way.
Yeah. So J.J. Abrams, a couple of years after the film came out, addressed some of these shortcomings in an interview, and has like since basically said that he shouldn't have kept the secret. So he said the dynamic of Kirk and Spock's relationship wasn't really clear in the film. For keeping the identity of Khan a secret, he said he was trying to preserve the fun for the audience and not just tell them something that the characters don't learn for 45 minutes into the movie so the audience wouldn't be so ahead of it. And he said there were certain things he was unsure of. Any movie has fundamental conversation happening. For Into Darkness, I didn't have it. The problems with the plot are not anyone's fault but mine, or frankly, anyone's problem but mine. The script was a little bit of a collection of scenes that were written by my friends, and yet I found myself frustrated by my choices and unable to hang my hat on an undeniable thread of the main story. So then I found myself on that movie, basically tap dancing as well as I could to try and make the sequences as entertaining as possible. I would never say that I don't think the movie ended up working, but I feel like it didn't work as well as it could have, and had I made some better decisions before we started shooting.
This is a harrowing insight into the mind of J.J. Abrams after directing an 84% pretty good movie in a franchise. What the fuck must he be thinking after Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. If that's how hard he is on himself for a movie that was, I would think, perfectly. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a good time. I thought the opening scene was fun. I liked all the stuff about like how like they accidentally prove aliens to a species that have barely discovered the wheel. I was like, this is great. I love, like, next to warp speed being the like great filter that species have to pass through. I love that they class planets like this way, and that they essentially become like an early UFO cave painting for this race. Great, awesome stuff. Love that.
Well, because that's the whole thing about the Prime Directive, is that you don't interfere, you just observe.
Yeah. So awesome. That's all great. Like, I'm just like the fallout to Rise of Skywalker, 10 times the fallout of Into Darkness.
Yeah.
And this is how hard he took Into Darkness. The man must be miserable. He hasn't directed anything since Rise of Skywalker, and it's no wonder.
Yeah, what's he up to? He's doing some shows for HBO Max. Yeah, he's just executive producing a bunch of shit. Yeah, he does.
He was attached to a Superman movie at one point, but not anymore.
Superman Flyby. That was over 20 years ago, but yeah.
Well, I think he was attached to something more recent, but okay. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy this movie. I remember so clearly that it was like we were at I was at broadcasting school when this came out, and there was a group of us that realized like we didn't have anything to do for like 3 hours, like technically didn't have anything to do. And so we were like, should we just like go to the movies? And like, if the teachers notice, like we'll just walk out and come back. But I reckon we could probably get away with this. So we went to the movies like just in the middle of class. Because it was like a study period, or one of these things where you just had to achieve whatever by the end of the day. And yeah, we all had a good time, and I hadn't seen it since then, but I remembered enjoying it at the time. Yeah, but we talk about titles a lot on this podcast. Very important part of this podcast.
Like, very excited to talk about this title.
I'm very excited to talk about this title because one of my like favorite pieces of trivia that I've brought this out so many times is that if you're listening to this, I know AJ, you know what I'm talking about here, but Wikipedia, when you make an edit, there is a talk page, which is like a tab that for Wikipedia editors where you go on and be like, I've made this change, here's why. The Wikipedia talk page for Star Trek Into Darkness has over 40,000 words on it, written just about whether the I in Into Darkness should be capitalized.
This is great. So the question is, Richard,
the talk
this is
page debate has its own Wikipedia page.
Yes, this is what we talk about titles a lot on this podcast. This is what it's been preparing us for, right? Because the question, it's a very do you ever see a man say goodbye to a shoe situation, where the question is the title a subtitle situation, Star Trek: Into Darkness, as in the same way that Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, is, or is it a look who's talking to situation where the title is Star Trek Into Darkness?
Yes, it's Star Trek Into Darkness or Star Trek Into Darkness.
Star Trek Into Darkness. And it's not helped by the fact that the next one, Star Trek Beyond, could also be Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that's the titling scheme of the Kelvin timeline. Is it's Star Trek and then it creates a sentence, which I like. I'm personally in the camp that it is Star Trek Into Darkness.
So Damon Lindelof said that they struggled to agree on a title, and apparently he joked that there's more conversations about what to call it than how to shoot it. And he said, "There's no."
Do we have some alternate titles?
There's no word that comes after the colon after Star Trek that's cool. Not that Star Trek Insurrection or First Contact aren't good titles. It's just that everything that people are turned off about when it comes to Trek is represented by the colon. He, of the titles proposed,
interesting.
He joked that he preferred, his favorite was Star Trek Transformers 4 because the title is technically available. But yeah, so the debate about whether or not it should be capitalized is that prepositions fewer than 5 letters aren't capitalized. So in, into, and things like that wouldn't be capitalized in a title like that. Yeah. But if it's the first word of a subtitle, then it would be capitalized. And so for a long time,
what is it currently sitting?
So in end of January 2013, so before the movie even came out, this debate was solved. And it's capitalized. For a long time, it was like Star Trek Into Darkness lowercase, and then it would in parentheses say usually written as Star Trek Into Darkness capitalized. But then a consensus was reached. But yeah, there was an XKCD comic about it. Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, I prefer because the fact that it's capitalized essentially means that it is treated as a subtitle.
Right, so I want my cake and eat it too in this situation. I want to think of it as the titling scheme for the Kelvin timeline is turning Star Trek into a sentence, so Star Trek Into Darkness. But I also think it would be weird to give the I give into a lowercase I instead of just capitalizing every word. I know that I guess into is a preposition, but it feels like a less common preposition than if it was like
the word into doesn't look like a word anymore. I've read it so many times now.
But you don't hear whereas compared to and or the, like if this was Star Trek and release, I don't know, like then of course it'd be Star Trek and release. That's a great title. Like then of course the A would be lowercase, but because into it feels like a less common preposition, I would feel very strange about it not being capitalized. On Letterboxd, for the record, I looked at this. It is capitalized. So that seems to be the unit standard for how to spell the title across all the platforms now.
Yeah. What do you think of that frickin' hot scene where Alice Eve takes all her clothes off?
Gratuitous and unnecessary, and literally in the trailer, the one shot of her wearing in her underwear is the 100% of it is in the trailer, and it's the only thing in the movie that's even remotely like scandalous. So funny. Actually, no. Is it in this one? You see Kirk in bed with like some triplets or something, some like alien.
No.
Is
I
that
can't
the
remember if
third
it's
one?
this one. Yeah, I can't remember which one it's on.
But I remember seeing that. Actually, I think it was this one. Yeah, it was
Mm.
this one because I remember thinking like, doesn't this feel dated in kind of a way? Like I feel like that kind of gag now we would be like a little bit like, oh, this is so chauvinistic and male gazy. But this was like right on the cusp,
Yeah.
right that before they Star Trekked into cancel culture. Um, and
Well,
I
the
also think
2014 iCloud leak was a big turning point.
true.
The
There you go.
fappening.
And I also think there's a moment in Star Trek 2009 where when he first meets Uhura and he's like flirting with her, and then he gets beaten up by someone and he falls over and like perfectly cups her breasts with his hands as he like falls onto her, and he looks up at her and sort of like gives a cheeky grin, and she like shoves him away. And again, I feel like 2009 feels very late in the timeline for a movie to still have a man grabs woman's breasts jokes. Those were all over the show. Kangaroo fucking Jack, remember that? Like
Kangaroo fucking jack my dick.
when I saw that scene. But because like and I don't know. There's like
I mean,
the same thing happened.
Joss
in
Whedon put
Joss Whedon. That's just what I was about to
in
say.
Age of Ultron and in Justice League.
They like the Flash falls into Wonder Woman's cleavage, and these feel like jokes, the last spurts of a last generation of perverts. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a it feels very specific to an era, and I guess that era
it's the end of an era.
2009. Yeah.
It's interesting. But yeah, like so Damon Lindelof like apologized for that scene on Twitter and was like, you know, I'll try to do better and all this stuff. And then
which scene? Sorry,
the Alice Eve scene, with her in her underwear. Alice Eve has said that she never saw the controversy in it, never felt pressured to do it or anything like that, and was happy to show off her body that she'd worked out so hard. J.J. Abrams, I remember he was on Conan. Couple of things. Like I remember he was on Conan before this movie came out and was like, we're currently editing it. I brought a clip. But the studio said, you know, it has to be really short. So here is 3 frames of Into Darkness, and it's a shot of Spock in the volcano from the start of the film. But yeah, he went on Conan one time and they talked about the Alice Eve scene. He's like, well, you know, fair is fair, but there was a deleted scene in the film that I think evens the playing field a little bit. And he played this little clip that there was a deleted scene of Khan having a shower. And so there's like this shirtless Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not an even playing field.
I mean, 2013 Benedict Cumberbatch, like when
he's always looked like a bug, dude.
Like, but he was a sex symbol at the time. I feel like he is less so now, but like my God, people were thirsting over him at the time. And when I was watching the film with Jess, and she was like, "When did Benedict Cumberbatch stop being cool?"
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that's sort of what we said.
When he started doing American accents.
But yeah, because I mean, like, what do you think of him in this?
It was cool to see him. I think he's pretty good in it.
Yeah.
I thought the scene where him and Kirk have to like they're in like astronaut suits and they basically have to like ride the gravitational pull to another ship. That's the best scene in the movie. I thought that was super captivating, and I liked the character play between the two of them.
And I like how even on the Enterprise, they're like having to help Khan and be like, "Oh, you got debris," and he's like, "Yep, I see it."
And Khan saves him, saves Kirk, who goes off course. That was a great scene, and like I like that dynamic a lot. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything more to say. I think the ending of the film is just kind of like
it wraps up too quickly.
Yeah.
Also, like, stop crashing the Enterprise. I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's weird to destroy it in this and then in Beyond as well.
Yeah, you see a lot of innocent crew members get sucked out of the Enterprise in this.
Yeah, and
when it's
Kirk doesn't give a shit.
Kirk does not give a shit, and it also begs the question, like, how often does this happen? And what does a contract look like when you join Starfleet to go on these missions? Like, I guess, like, I wouldn't go on Enterprise knowing how frequent people get sucked out into the vacuum of space.
Yeah, there is, like, Yeah, there's a joke in the film that sort of references that when like Kirk's like, Chekhov, come with me, chuck on a red shirt, and he's like, oh,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, there's
Which
like red shirts is like we haven't talked about it at all in this, but yeah, it's like a term for it's a trope now of you talk about the
yeah.
red shirts that accompany the main characters, and they're people that are just
Mm,
cannon fodder essentially, and it comes from
yeah.
because I think it's like the color of engineering or something like that. So they're the people that were always in the lower decks and they were expendable.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like, oh, it's not. It's kind of interesting that like how many main characters wear red shirts in the franchise. Despite that, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you're desperate to go through?
Well,
With this?
you mentioned before that we made a cult popcorn video.
Oh yeah, no, I was wrong on
ago,
it.
which is
Yeah, so
1 minute video
the
essays.
point of and this was like I remember this was very early on in our friendship, and we were talking, and I was talking
We
about
were
this
still flirting.
with you, and you were like, "Bro,
Yeah.
that's a cult popcorn. You should make it." And then so I voiced it. Are they still on the channel? I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know. But they my point was essentially that like I think the Khan reveal in Star Trek Into Darkness is better than the Blofeld reveal in fucking Spectre, yeah. Because in Spectre, it's right at the end of the film, you go through the whole thing, is like, my name is Blofeld, and it's like, that means nothing to James Bond, it means nothing to anyone, it's just, oh, yeah, you were right, audience, it is Blofeld. And then I said that in Into Darkness, he says Khan, and then they immediately ask Spock Prime, who is Khan, and they get context. It's like, there is like 40 minutes between those two scenes. Like, and the context is essentially just like, yeah, fuck, he's real bad, and yeah, it's watching it again, it's not a good reveal. It adds nothing that he's Khan.
Yeah, I agree.
And also now,
also
having seen Wrath of Khan and knowing that it's like these are
Yeah.
completely different characters.
I also, like, having not rewatched your cult popcorn, thought that that video was about criticizing the Star Trek Into Darkness
Yeah,
reveal.
I mean, maybe it was. I don't know. Should we cut that?
If only they were really quick videos we could quickly watch to get a reminder.
So, moving on to Star Trek Beyond, as of now is
Star Trek Beyond.
That's what I said. So this one, J.J. Abrams was busy directing The Force Awakens, and so Justin Lin took over after leaving the Fate of the Furious.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think this one has on Rotten Tomatoes?
So I reckon this is closer to the first one. So the last one was 84. I reckon this is like 90.
87.
Yeah, right.
And what is it on about?
They go to the far reaches of space. They're on a 5-year journey in space, and then the Enterprise gets destroyed by some crazy like assimilated ship. They crash on this planet where they recoup and then have to face off against the villain, who is revealed to be an old Starfleet captain who escaped to this planet and lived there for long enough that he went insane and he wants to like destroy Starfleet or something. And he's played by Idris Elba in a role I did not know he had. This is more of a twist to me than Khan from Into Darkness. Is that what this movie's about? Because I've got a confession to make about this movie, but I want you to tell me if I missed anything important first.
Right. I am so sorry. I just assumed you would recount the plot, and so I wasn't listening. What are you asking me?
Well, you tell me what's this one about.
No. That's not how it goes.
Well, I gave it an attempt. They go to this far off planet, and Idris Elba's a bad guy.
Yeah.
My confession, I didn't think this was that good. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's fun, but I think Into Darkness is better. And I think J.J. Abrams is a better director than Justin Lin, at least with these sample sizes.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, like, there's the whole thing of like the swarm and everything like that comes out of them. This one I think won over fans, and again, this is the kind of thing to be corrected, but it's closer to the tone of the original series. It was written by Simon Pegg and Doug Jung, and he And yeah, I think they went for a much more.
It's an episodic.
Yeah, there's like
It's an
everyone gets
episode.
split up into little teams and stuff like that,
Yeah.
which feel very episodic.
And that's what I didn't like, especially like the whole time watching this, I was just thinking like, how good is the 2009 one? The 2009 one, which takes place over decades, and not parts of it do, and it's like all the characters sort of seamlessly melded together into one storyline that travels time and space. Like, it's so grandiose, the first one, and it feels like it is a significant point in a story, the beginning, but still a significant point in the story. And I think Into Darkness also feels like a significant point in the story. Beyond feels like this could be movie 3, this could be movie 5, like there's no...
That's kind of what I liked about it, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe that is a good... I just felt like it was far more... Other than the Enterprise getting blown up again, it was just way more like subdued in its scope, I think. And I don't know, I just like the bigger, more complex stories of the J.J. Abrams films. Yeah, I liked parts of it. It starts really good, I'll say that. It starts with a monologue from Kirk basically being like...
Getting pretty bored of space.
Getting pretty bored of space. He even uses the word episodic, which I loved.
Yeah.
He was like, things are starting to feel episodic. And I was like, okay, Simon Pegg, give me the food to eat. This is really good stuff. And... yeah, I liked all of that. I liked these movies have really good internal journeys for Kirk and Spock. Like, all three of them, I think, have very, very, like, satisfying, sort of character arcs in them. And that's true of this one, where they're both sort of hinting that they're ready to leave behind Starfleet for different reasons. But then the fact that it ends with them just being like, actually, we're going to keep doing it. It's like, but why? But why?
Right.
Like, this doesn't have to be the final film in the Kelvin timeline. I'm not saying commit, but I'm saying, like, I don't think either of them experience anything more significant than what they'd already experienced that had kept them in Starfleet. And I also thought Spock's motivation to leave was because the older version of Spock had passed away, and he is like, I need to... be on New Vulcan or whatever. There's a New Vulcan apparently. I felt like that was quite a noble pursuit for the character. That it wasn't followed up on. It wasn't like him staying in Starfleet feels like the more selfish decision. It feels like the least logical decision if we're playing his game. I don't know. Like, I liked this, but I just clocked out right toward the end. By the time Idris Elba was, established as being Idris Elba, I was like, oh wow. But by that point, I was like, I've kind of lost interest in the story. Yeah,
I mean, I
kind of disappointed by this.
I really like it up until the sort of, I guess you'd say the final act. But I will say, and this is one of those like real divisive things that, like, so many people are, this scene fucking ruined the franchise. Oh, that movie's so stupid. The scene where they blast Sabotage by the Beastie Boys to destroy like an actual wave of this like swarm, and they like even like the actual like wave crashing and they fly inside it. It's probably my favorite scene in the franchise. It's so sick.
It's great, and it's like that scene is all about like, what's the song, right? And for somehow, Richard, never seen this movie before, leading into that scene, I was like, it's going to be Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
There's just something Beastie Boys about the scene. I just knew it was going to go there.
So it was, the Sabotage plays in the first film of this trilogy. And Kirk says, like, good choice. And they joke about, like, is this classical music? And they're like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that the trailer for this film was like very action oriented and featured Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, which might be what you're thinking of. And people were like, this looks like shit, because also they, Simon Pegg had come out beforehand and said like, this one's going to be truer to the spirit of the original series and everything. And then this trailer came out and he was like, I don't think this represents our movie very well. Like, and he said he was disappointed when he saw the trailer. Interesting. But speaking of disappointments, so Sulu is revealed to be gay in this film.
And you were
which
disappointed by that because you're homophobic.
yeah, so I was not disappointed by that.
I
But
loved it, actually. I thought it was great.
someone who was very disappointed by this was George Takei, who played Sulu in the
No,
original series.
known homosexual
George
Takei.
gay rights activist. And so he, essentially said that he's like, I'm delighted there's a gay character, but it's a twisting of Gene's creation, which he put in so much thought. I think it's really unfortunate. Said that, he was always like a LGBT defender, but he had been pushing the envelope very far and walking on a very tight rope. And if he pushed too far, i.e. making a character gay, the show wouldn't have been on the air. Anyway, and so like John Cho called him to be like, oh, we're going to make Sulu gay as a tribute to you. And he was like, oh, don't do that. Don't do that. And said, be imaginative, create a character who has a history of being gay rather than Sulu, who had been straight all this time, suddenly being revealed as being closeted, even though it's like, the timeline doesn't necessarily make sense. And apparently Justin Lin then contacted him, and he, again, steadfastly opposed the decision, saying it's coming out on the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, paying tribute to Gene Roddenberry, a man whose vision it was carried us through half a century. Honor him and create a new character. I urged them. He left me feeling like that was going to happen. And then, Simon Pegg then emailed and said, like, thanks for your advocacy for LGBT movement and everything. And he said, oh, how wonderful. A fan letter from Simon Pegg. Justin must have talked to him about it. And then, they said that we're going on now. John Cho called him and was like, "We're going on a media tour. What should I do with when people talk about the fact that Sulu's gay now?" And and he just said like, "No, not fun, not a fan." But then Simon Pegg responded to that, essentially being like, "With all due respect, love your work, love you as a person. I think this is in line with what." With what Gene would have wanted.
This is so weird. I gotta say, George Takei's position on this, I think, is stupid.
Yeah, he should be straight because that's the way he always was. I think that
it's saying like, no, you're impeding Gene Roddenberry's vision. This very progressive man who pushed the envelope. It's like, yeah, man. Listen to yourself speak. What do you mean? First of all, let's not pretend like Sulu is like an incredibly gay character. It's one scene in the background.
Yeah.
It's very proto Rise of Skywalker. If anything, I would argue it's not enough to be counted as meaningful.
Yeah.
But like, I think those are such nonsensical reasons to not want the character to be gay. I think that's bananas. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. Simon Pegg's response essentially said, like, he is right. It is unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the screen version of the most inclusive, tolerant universe in science fiction has never featured an LGBT character until now. Yeah. We could have introduced a new gay character, but he or she would have been primarily defined by their sexuality, seen as the gay character, rather than simply for who they are, and that's tokenism. And said, Justin Lin, Doug Jung, and I loved the idea of it being someone we already knew because the audience have a pre-existing opinion of that character as a human being unaffected by any prejudice. Their sexual orientation is just one of the many personal aspects, not the defining characteristic. Also, the audience would infer that there has been an LGBT presence of the Trek universe from the beginning, or at least in the Kelvin timeline, that the gay hero isn't something new or strange. It's also important to note that at no point do we suggest that our Sulu was ever closeted. Why would he need to be? It hasn't come up before.
Yeah, I like his thing there is like, at least the Kelvin timeline, like something about Nero coming back and destroying USS Kelvin made Sulu gay.
But he said that it's I don't think Gene Roddenberry's decision to make the prime timelines Enterprise crew was an artistic one, more a necessity at the time. The lowest rated episode ever is the one with the first interracial kiss. They weren't open-minded at the time, and they forced him to modulate his innovation. So, yeah.
Speaking of interracial kisses, is Uhura and Spock being an item, is that from the Kelvin timeline, or is that...
I think
in
so,
the
yeah.
original series. I wonder if that pissed people off. Andrew, write it down, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to know what you think of Spockhura.
Nice. I didn't mention it last episode, but I believe in Nemesis, did you notice a problematic cameo?
No, maybe. Remind me.
Bryan Singer, isn't it?
I did not notice that,
Yeah.
no.
He plays
I don't think I would know. I don't think I would recognize Bryan
Oh, yeah.
Singer if he was in a movie from that long ago.
And also, but in this film, there's a scene where one of the alien, the one that has the big shit on the back of her head, gets saved, and this random alien, covered in freaking makeup and shit, says like, use your normal voice or something like that. That alien is played by none other than Jeff Bezos.
That son of a bitch.
Yeah.
He made it into Star Trek.
Yeah. He's just a massive Trekkie. Apparently he'd been trying to get Paramount to put him in something Star Trek for a long time, and joked about like the poor director that finally received the phone call being like, you have to put Jeff in it. Which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Does Jeff Bezos consider the like ramifications of his role in society as a billionaire when watching Star Trek, the show about like progressing humanity forward? Do you think that's lost on him?
No.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the new character Jayla?
Jayla, I thought it was interesting that this movie introduced 2 female alien characters, and one is killed off because she's a bad guy. They both are very similar designs. Not exactly the same, but similar enough. And that neither of them felt particularly interesting.
Well, and they also don't bring back Alice Eve, even though she joins the crew of the
Yeah!
Enterprise.
Yeah, I was going to say
Apparently,
that. Where
Simon
did she
Pegg
go?
just said that they couldn't, didn't have anything meaningful for her to do in the film.
It is kind of like you don't want to make like a reboot of a classic series and then movie 2 have an original character join the cast going forward.
Yeah.
I feel like people wouldn't like that.
But so Sophia Boutella plays Jayla. It was actually written for a different actress though. And do you want to take a guess at who the actress might have been?
Let's go Charlize Theron.
No, so the name Jayla is a clue.
J-Lo?
Close.
J-Law.
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence. The part was written for Jennifer Lawrence, and just all throughout development, they jokingly didn't come up with a character name and just called that character J-Law. And then they just thought, oh, well, we'll just leave it as that.
Do you know that when you look up Sophia Boutella on Google, the Wikipedia link comes up, and the first sentence in the preview for the Wikipedia link says her surname means the men of the mountains.
Wow.
It's like, why is that the first thing it's telling you?
Yeah, tell me about her work in The Mummy.
Yeah. She's an Algerian actress, dancer, and model. Say that in the Google preview.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, this film also interestingly has like 2 dedications in it, because it says like
it's dedicated to the memory of Leonard Nimoy, but it's for Anton.
Yeah.
So when did Anton Yelchin
Anton Yelchin died a month before the movie came out. Leonard Nimoy died a year before it came out.
Right, interesting, isn't it? Because I didn't really know about Anton Yelchin that much until he died. Like I'd seen the first Star Trek movie and thought it was like a relatively just unremarkable role, and then in this I've been exposed the most to Anton Yelchin through this podcast, because this is the 3rd time that Anton Yelchin has played like a previously established character, because he plays the main guy in the reboot of Fright Night, in which he's great,
and that movie fucking rocks.
That movie fucking rocks. He played Kyle Reese in Terminator Salvation. And now he's playing Chekhov, or he played Chekhov already by that point. And man, what a delightful screen presence this kid had, right?
Yeah.
Like what a of all the if you showed me the Star Trek movies and said one of these young actors prematurely dies, you couldn't pick a more innocent, sweet one to like, I don't. It's so sad. He seems like such an innocent and lovely dude. Yeah. R.I.P.
Yeah,
I was wondering like if he was even going to be in this one because I thought he had died before it came out. Yeah.
yeah. They said for a fourth one he wouldn't be recast. So I guess they just kill off the real fucking because he's like 17 in the first one. They say the character's 17. He's in a movie called Like Crazy as well. That's a very intense emotional journey.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm keen to check. As always, whenever we watch an Anton Yelchin movie, I'm like keen to check out more of his stuff.
Also, you'd like Green Room.
I was eating Green Room.
He's the main character
with Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I watched at the end of 2016. I remember this was when we were living together at that house on Patterson Street. I watched Star Trek Beyond, Green Room, John Wick, like a bunch of these movies for the first time. Good movie. All three of those are good movies. So it's time to continue the franchise, and this is an interesting one because, I mean, most of my notes for this episode are about the development of a fourth film. So
this is like this came out in 2016. Star Trek Beyond. The clock is ticking. It is arguable. I guess you could release anything at any time.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's getting like too late. People have stopped caring about the Kelvin time.
I remember at one point reading that like the contracts had run out, and so it was like they had to lock one in at a certain point. But yeah, anyway, the main sort of thing that we've known about the fourth one for a long time, or we knew about it, was that the fourth film was going to have Chris Hemsworth come back. Because also worth mentioning that his appearance at the start of the first one is before Thor came out.
Yeah.
And so it's like they really got lucky that he ended up becoming the biggest star in that movie, Yeah. It's such interesting casting because like post-fame Chris Hemsworth makes so much more sense to be in that role.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, why'd you get the guy from Neighbours to do this?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's good. It's quite good casting for like looks really similar to Chris Pine, but not identical. So he was going to come back, and they like I said, Chekhov would not be recast. It was officially announced at one point, and the announcement confirmed the main cast returning from Beyond, as well as Chris Hemsworth. And then on the Nerdist podcast in December 2015, Quentin Tarantino said that he was interested in making a Star Trek film. He said he was a fan of the reboot film as well as the original series, and he thought there were a lot of episodes that could easily be expanded into a feature film. And then it was like 2 years later that clip blew up on YouTube, and he was asked a bunch about directing a Star Trek film, and he said, yeah, it's worth having a meeting about. But he's always said he plans to retire after making 10 films, and he'd made 8 at this point and was getting ready to prep Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In 2018, they said that there's a sequel to Beyond being produced, as well as Tarantino's films. There's 2 films, both in development. And then it was revealed that Tarantino's story was based on the episode A Piece of the Action, which is set on an alien planet with an Earth-like 1920s gangster culture. He assembled a writer's room, so he wasn't going to write his Star Trek film. It was going to be R-rated. It's going to be very much in the style of Tarantino, who's going to make edits to it, but he was too busy with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Patrick Stewart and William Shatner both expressed interest in returning for the opportunity to work with Tarantino.
Shatner, yeah, man. It's because he had previously said he's not interested in returning, but he's like, Tarantino, fuck yeah.
So in 2019, he said, yeah, it's definitely still in development. And he said the script's great. It's like Pulp Fiction in space. And he said that he was a fan of...
It's exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah.
It's Pulp Fiction in space.
He said that he was a big fan of Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto's performances, so he wanted them to star in his film. But he wanted it to be a prequel to the original series rather than continuing the alternate timeline. And
what's the difference?
Apparently they had a meeting with J.J. Abrams and... was like, I don't understand this, I don't like it. And J.J. Abrams was like, just do what you want.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah, well, that's my reaction as well. I'm like, I don't know what's the difference between it being a prequel to the original series.
yeah, and then he acknowledged that maybe Star Trek doesn't count towards his 10 film plan, but then like he still wants to only make 10, blah blah blah. And in December 2019, he said he was steering away from directing the film, and then a month later said he wasn't going to direct it, but he thinks it's a good idea for a Star Trek film, and suggested it still be made, offering to give notes on the first cut.
Right.
And then
Okay.
after a big search for a female director, they landed on S.J. Clarkson, who's directed a lot of TV. Her like big screen debut feature film is going to be Madam Web, the upcoming Sony Spider-Man spin-off.
Well, that's not coming out either.
it's shot, so it's
Is it shot?
yeah.
Okay.
With
we
Dakota Johnson
live
and Sydney Sweeney.
We live in 2021 or earlier when a movie being shot guaranteed that it would be released eventually.
So in 2018, so this is a lot of these are running concurrently with the Tarantino thing. The Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth left the film in 2018.
No.
Then it was all the shit. Hemsworth said he was underwhelmed by the script. Then it was revealed just last year that they'd worked on the script for 2.5 years, and it was going to be inspired by an episode of The Next Generation called Relics, in which they find that Scotty is still alive inside a transporter buffer many years after his presumed death. So this is like, a century later in The Next Generation, they're like, oh shit, he's just been living down here. And so it was going to be that like the wreck of the Kelvin, and George Kirk had saved a copy of himself before the ship exploded, and now could have conversations with Kirk and shit. Yeah,
that's dumb. That's dumb. I don't think time travel exists in Star Trek, so I'm okay with a Kirk on Kirk. But I think something like that, where it reduces the sacrifice of the original film, is like so bad, such bad writing.
Yeah, they said it was going to be a father-son galactic adventure featuring a similar relationship to Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, and it was good.
Well, there's a difference here, isn't there? And it's that one of those actors is older than the other.
Yeah.
These two guys are the same age.
Yeah. Noah Hawley was then, once that one fell apart, he was hired to write and direct in 2019, and it was set to feature a new plot from not the George Kirk time travel premise, also separate to Tarantino's idea. It was going to have everyone return. He said that calling the film Star Trek 4 was a bit of a misnomer, and that reports of the Beyond cast returning were not necessarily correct, saying that he had approached Paramount with his own vision for the franchise. It was going to be different from previous films, likely involving new characters. And he wanted to tell a story that was respectful and like had the same kind of relationship with the source material as Fargo and Legion did. And he said that the Star Trek values of exploration and humanity at its best, with diversity and creative problem solving, was the most important thing to him, specifically referencing a scene from Wrath of Khan, which Kirk puts on his reading glasses and lowers Khan's shields. It doesn't cost anything, but it's that triumphant feeling about outsmarting your enemy that he wanted to recreate. And also, so he was still writing it midway through 2020. Apparently, it may have had a plot involving a deadly virus, which would have been uncomfortable. He ended up, again, that didn't happen, and then in mid-2020 they did a big reassessment of what the Star Trek brand is and where do we want to go with it, etc. They talked about the cleanest path forward is just to do Star Trek 4, same cast, continue the storyline. But then they said, oh, well, maybe we do like the Hawley and Tarantino films are more like Logan sort of thing, with like a spin-off where it's like, just tell the story you want and pick and choose what you want from the universe. And they also, whatever they did, they wanted to increase overseas box office. And a bunch of other names floated around, but the biggest one, sort of most notably, was Matt Shakman, who directed WandaVision.
Yeah.
So he turned down several offers apparently in favor of doing Star Trek and signed a deal in the middle of 2021. And blah, blah, blah. So much information. He's now left this project to do Fantastic Four. So
this is cursed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, Star Trek has pivoted hard back into TV
Yeah.
since Beyond as well.
Yeah, I mean,
So
maybe
I
it's
feel
like
like
maybe you look back at Star Trek and the years to come. You look back at Star Trek and it's like, well, this got it popular again, and that's all it needed
totally.
to be.
But it also makes you wonder, like, if Beyond is the last in the Kelvin timeline, maybe it should have ended with at least one of the two ones retiring.
Yeah.
I just thought it was weird to set up to begin a movie with like pretty bored of being in space, and then end it with like, I'm gonna suck it up and keep being in space.
Yeah.
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 Interesting.
And now is the time where we both pitch our own continuations of the franchise. And my one's like, there's a question I've been meaning to ask for the whole time. Is that like, so we have what, like 11 Star Trek TV shows? It's crazy only 2 of them got movies to me. Like, why is there not a Deep Space Nine movie? Why is there not a Enterprise movie?
Well, because
like,
Nemesis was so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is it, but like, and I mean, and it seems like looking at like the ratings and the cancellations of the series that they were just
Star Trek's always sucked.
Yeah.
Star Trek's always done poorly with audiences.
But yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy that these are the only movies we have. I don't know.
So you want a Deep Space Nine movie?
I want a Deep Space Nine movie. That's what I'm pitching. I do not know anything about the characters or the plot or anything.
We are in a situation now though where I feel like the next Star Trek movie is going to be a Paramount Plus
streaming Strange New Worlds movie.
Strange New Worlds Discovery
crossover
thing. Like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mike, I have two, much like the real life development of a Star Trek 4 in the Kelvin timeline.
Well, I knew you had a good one, so I was like, I don't need to do one.
Well, I thought I had a good one, Richard, and then it turned out to be a lot harder than I thought. So, should I do? I've got two subpar ones. So the first thing I thought this should have been what my continue the franchise was for the original series, because remember my one for that was like steal the plot of the motion picture
and make the Prestige.
Yeah, but then I was like, well, why did like Star Trek 4 in the Kelvin timeline should just be a remake of the motion picture?
Right? Yeah.
Right, like that's essentially what I'm saying.
Especially now that the longer we wait.
Yeah. And maybe you wait, 30 years, 20 years, 30 years and do it with old Chris Pine. Although I don't know, does the zeitgeist and like public opinion of different film like iconography, does it allow for like an old man Logan story starring the second actor to be old man Kirk?
I don't know.
Or is like
it's not up to me.
It's like a legacy sequel to Star Trek 2009. Like, no, we don't care enough about the Chris Pine version of the character 20 years later. So that was the thing, and you can cast Chris Evans
Chris Stuckman or something.
As Chris Stuckman. You can cast one of the other Hollywood Chris's as Captain Decker from the motion picture. So you've got all the Chris's find their way to Star Trek eventually. But no, I think, and I'm surprised this is not in your notes for a how to continue the franchise in real life, because this feels like it's like just the idea that no one's considering, and that's what about a Kelvin timeline Next Generation?
The reason it's not on my notes is because you messaged me the other day that you were doing this.
Right, so it has been talked about in official channels?
No, like you told me you were doing it, so I was like, well, I don't need to bring AJ's going to bring it up.
That's what I mean, is like I'm surprised in these official discussions,
right.
No one has gone, let's do a Next Generation in the Kelvin timeline. Let's do the same thing as the 2009 one, but with the TNG cast, and like you couldn't do it with all of the Star Trek series, I guess, but TNG feels like it's still got
like
gravitas.
Enough,
So I thought the obvious way to have fun with this was to pitch who you'd cast as each of the characters that I have some vague grasp on.
Yeah. So who does Paul Mescal play and who does Adam Driver play?
No, they're not in it. But
fuck off.
their ilk are. Well, I ran into a problem, and I've actually only written down 3 cast members.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. One is that I have zero understanding of the characterization of, like, the woman characters in Star Trek TNG. Like, I don't know, get whoever. Get actresses from, like, Sex Education to play them. Because that's who, that's the equivalent of who was in the 2009 one. As, like, TV, like Zachary Quinto
from
Heroes and all that sort of thing. But the other problem I ran into was all the characters in Star Trek, the original series, are roughly like the same age, or at least appear the same age. Picard is about 30 years older than all of the other characters in TNG. So I've got cast for the 3 characters I think you could still cast despite that. You can't cast Riker, you can't cast Geordi, because they'd all be 1 year old if you cast a young Picard.
Right. Okay.
But I've cast Picard, Data, and Worf, because Data's an android, Worf, Klingons age differently, and Picard is who I'd want to be in the film and be a young version. Right. And I think I've got a really fucking good cast for Picard. I think and it's not, it's not an actor you'll be surprised to hear me list here, because he's big at the moment. But he is weird looking in the same way that Patrick Stewart is weird looking. And I think a 30-year-old Captain Picard in the Star Trek Next Generation Kelvin timeline movie should be played, and I've never known how to pronounce this properly, Barry Keoghan.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't he look like if a young Patrick Stewart got punched in the face a few times?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He's very young,
I reckon he's 30, I think, or 31.
Yeah.
And he would play Picard. I don't think we do anything with his hair. I think we just say he's not bald yet.
Right.
And he can do a voice. He can do. With Data, I was trying to think, like, all right, who's like popular and has like an android like quality to them. Are you familiar with an actor named Skylar Gisondo?
Yeah, I've read the name.
So he's in Licorice Pizza as like the heartthrob character.
Oh yes, yeah.
And he's in a bunch of stuff, and he's sort of, there's a meme culture around him being like delightful.
Yeah,
basically.
He's in
and
Vacation,
I don't think
the reboot.
Yeah, and I don't think he doesn't look like Data. You know what I mean? Like, there are enough facial similarities that I could see him with the fucking weird lizard eyes and the sticky skin being that character. And as for Worf, I have cast Trevante Rhodes from Moonlight as young Worf. Now, Andrew Todd, our friend who... Sorry, I just dropped something. Oh, fuck. Andrew Todd, our friend who I'm sure is enjoying listening to the first episodes of the Cult Publisher podcast he's ever listened to, and listening back to the Star Trek ones. He wants to come on and talk to us about it. And this is beyond... I've told him, like, we want you to come on and I'm Actually Us. But this is additionally, I want you, Andrew, to cast a modern... And you can ignore my castings. You can do your own thing. Do a Kelvin timeline Next Generation cast, because you'll know more about it than I
also
do.
think that, like, don't feel beholden to making Picard much younger. Like, I don't know. You can make Picard like 50 age. And then everyone else be 30 or something.
Yeah. So that's I think it's a fun conversation.
James McAvoy is Picard.
Yeah. It's not.
When you were like, "Oh, who's got like an androidy look?" I was like, Michael Fassbender.
Yeah. He'd be pretty good. No, he's too cool to be Data. Data's a dork.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was good as David.
Yeah, you don't want someone playing David and Data.
Yeah, too many D's.
Too many fucking D's,
right,
dude.
It's time to...
You wouldn't think it, but there's 3 in David and Data, because there's one at the end of David.
No, you would not think that. Hey,
it's the hidden D.
So, adding Star Trek to our ranked list. So there's a bit where we rank the franchise.
This is a bit we do.
It's just you just bear with us. Where do you think this is going to go? And also, is this a Gold Star franchise?
This is a Gold Star franchise. I guess because I wouldn't have said that if Into Darkness didn't get 84%.
Yeah, right.
And I do think that... I do think Star Trek 2009 is clearly the best one, but the gold star indicates no generally agreed upon weak link. And while I think certain people who are fans of old Star Trek might say Into Darkness is absolutely the generally agreed upon weak link, our general consensus machine that is the infallible Rotten Tomatoes is telling us that no, that's not true. So I'm cautious to give this a gold star because I think no one's going to say the first one isn't the best one.
I've already given it a gold star, sorry. So
you've already given it a gold star. So where does it go?
Is it better than The Hunger Games?
I was looking at The Hunger Games. I think it's between The Hunger Games and The 400 Blows.
Okay. Boom.
Yeah. Easy. I was like literally looking right at The Hunger Games. Yeah, so that's what, 25 now? The 25th best franchise we've watched. Richard, is it time for franchise roulette?
It is, AJ.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I've had it in the back of my mind for the last little while. Now it's time to decide our next franchise.
Yeah, we're going to roll a random number, and then who gets to make the other one guess this time?
I'll make you guess.
You'll make me guess what the franchise is, and we'll be covering this in 2 weeks' time. We've got a list of however many franchises that we'll be pulling from. Richard, tell me what the number is.
All right, let me just pull up my Randy number generator.
Oh,
getting randy.
You're random.
All right. 38.
Right, well, before you tell us what franchise 38 is, Richard, I just want to say to the listeners at home, if you've enjoyed this episode and you haven't already, please consider following us at all the places. You can do those primarily on Twitter and Instagram at ColdPopture. You can send us an email, coldpopturemedia@gmail.com. You can join the Discord where you can tell us how wrong we truly are about Star Trek. And you can also donate to our Patreon if you are so inclined at patreon.com/cultpopture, where you get to do things like suggest every second franchise we watch, or listen to exclusive podcasts where we revisit old franchises and look at new entries in them, or spin-off shows or something. Star Trek will be a plethora of film franchise follow-ups. And you get to give us things like the post-credit scene, which is coming at you soon. But Richard, before all of that, what is franchise, what was it, 38?
Yeah, so we've got a trilogy.
Love it. Easy.
And I think you are either going to be really annoyed or find it really funny that we're doing this one, because I know that it's one.
Mentioned it? Have we mentioned it on this episode?
Not this episode, but you and I have talked about it quite. It's your go-to example for a specific kind of film. Like a.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. It's when people talk about an experience with a film, there's like this is the golden example of that.
Oh. What era?
Mid 2000s.
And what?
One theatrical release, 2 straight to DVDs.
We're getting straight to DVD release sequels in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Is it Disney?
Nope. It's a science fiction thriller. According to it, it was nominated for Choice Movie Thriller at the Teen Choice Awards, but lost to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I guess they had 2 winners.
It's not. No, it won't, no. I was gonna guess Starship Troopers, but that was much earlier.
No. This is the kind of movie that you love when you're a kid, and it's gonna be great for us to revisit as adults. And see if it holds up.
Oh my god, I don't know. Tell me what it is.
The Butterfly Effect trilogy.
Oh, fucking hell! I was thinking about this recently and thinking, like, are we ever going to cover the Butterfly Effect trilogy? Or has its status as a trilogy just disappeared?
Yeah, faded into obscurity.
Like those sequels are movies that I genuinely was like, I never will even see the posters again, let alone watch
I've seen the Butterfly Effect 2. I haven't seen the Butterfly Effect 3 Revelations. But they're like...
I've seen them all.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, this will be an exciting one.
And do you know the main thing I remember? The fucking hot sex scenes at the sequence. That's all I remember from those movies all these years on.
Well, so...
Yeah.
Check in 2 weeks' time for a dissection of the Butterfly Effect, starring Ashton Kutcher and Amy Smart.
I'm excited, but this sucks.
Yeah.
Dude. This is rotten. This is like... This needs to be deleted from history.
Yeah.
Oh my god! This is a... See, Stuart Little was a season 1 episode. It felt like it belonged in season 1. This feels like it belongs in season 7. Or whatever. You know, the butter, like, we're down to the what people barely even know the first one exists. The whole trilogy. Incredible. Alright, everybody. Well, stay tuned for that in 2 weeks' time. We'll see you for the Butterfly Effect trilogy. The trilogy. Other than that, thank you for listening. Live long and prosper, and stay tuned for the post-credit scene coming at you after this music ends. Kirk out. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. This is a segment at the end of each episode where if you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpopture, you get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credits scene. Richard, who is it from? And what does it say?
Today's one comes to us from Vincent Lara, who says, if your life truly did flash before your eyes right before you passed, what song do you think will be playing through this montage for yourself? Sabotage by Beastie Boys. I can't stand it!
Are you familiar with the song? Are you familiar with the band The Bravery?
Yeah, man.
And their song Honest Mistake?
Yeah. I think
I reckon it goes, don't look at me that way. It was an honest mistake.
Nice.
Don't look at me that way. It was an honest mistake. An honest mistake. I listened to it a lot, and I reckon 2005.
That's when the song came out, yeah.
I reckon I listened to it heaps then, and it still sticks with me. Yeah, that's my flash before my eyes song.
Nice. Mine would be... my like serious answer would be Opportunity by Pete Murray, which is like my favourite song of all time. And it's all like, hold on now, your exit's here. So very, very fitting. But then, I don't know, I feel like when I pictured it, reading the question, I was picturing like a real fucking like upbeat montage.
Right, you're not thinking like the Book of Love playing at the end of
Scrubs
season
like there's just the first thing that came to my mind was like a way more like upbeat sort of thing. Separate Ways, Worlds Apart by Journey
is long and boring.
Or
I'm gonna actually change my answer to Push by
Seabet by Hudson Mohawk. Which it's the 1 year anniversary when we're recording this, the 1 year anniversary of the Reddit post about the guy who would make love to that song that goes it's like the most pathetic sounding. That's so good. Yeah, Seabet was my answer.
Alright, cut.